I still remember the clatter of iron and the oily hiss of compressed air as dawn began to sift through the high factory windows, painting streaks of weak yellow over the grey concrete. My senses, strained and pebbled by a sleepless night, caught the echo of wheels rolling through puddles of old rain beyond the gate. I watched the crew milling around the big time clock, hands nervous in their stained overalls, their laughter sharp from a sleepless shift. My own feet twitched in my tired sneakers, toes numb with the cold from the night shift and my eyes dry from screens and assembly lines and that stifling, heavy air. Ramon emerged from the supervisor's office, his bulk blocking the morning light. His moustache twitched as he peered at the sheet clipped to his clipboard. One by one he called names. No one wanted to hear theirs, not today. I stood off to the side with my backpack, silent and folded in on myself. Ernesto Martin, he called, and everyone turned. It was like the slow hush before a dropped wrench. I forced myself forward, pulse hammering. He dropped his head as if pitying me. Got to let someone go, he muttered, not meeting my eyes. They're bringing in new machinery, sound calibrations, all digital now. It'll do your job faster than you. Nothing personal. I wanted to say something clever, but my tongue thickened. My job had never been more than a stopgap, but even so there I was, hands shaking in the staccato air, a dark house with the rent overdue, and a mother who still believed I should have stuck with something real. They tossed my redundancy slip on top of my severance, which wasn't enough for even a month's rent, and that was it. I drifted out the wide, oil-slicked doors into the sharp light. That glare hid the city's scars, the graffitied walls, the worn-out gutters, the sound of a whole barrio waking up to bad news. I walked home through the winding streets of Vallecas, past bakeries just opening their steel shutters and the sharp smell of coffee riding the breeze. My place was 4 stories up, a clutch of rooms that rattled when the metro passed. I peeled off my jacket and dropped into a broken-back chair, the ache in my spine prickling everywhere. There was a letter on the table in my mother's handwriting, her neat, tight script crowded with anxiety. Ernesto, call your uncle this week, he might have work. Also, I told you if you want to eat you need to get serious. See you at Sonia's birthday, don't embarrass us with your projects. The projects, she never said the word dreams. Around here, that word was too grand. I'd never told my mother or her friends what it really was. I just wanted to create worlds out of thin air, to turn sound into emotion, to be the unseen hand behind film and memory. But in Vallecas, work meant brick, steel, fixing something, not making things no one could touch. I spent that week in limbo, long nights auditioning snippets of city sound in my cluttered apartment, building scenes in my headphones nobody else would ever hear. I pieced together Madrid at night, the low growl of engines, the chain-link fences in the wind, cathedral bells echoing after rain, a playground empties of children replaced by murmurs of a distant TV. I was obsessed. It was ridiculous. I told myself what my mother always had, don't waste time, find something real, but I couldn't. I wandered job to job, odd contracts, cleaning storerooms, temping. More and more, I spent evenings walking the city for rare sounds. The shuffle of pigeon wings in Retiro, buskers tuning their guitars by the metro, the staccato laugh of women finishing their night shifts. My phone filled with fragments. It wasn't a career, maybe that's what made it beautiful, a secret. One night at a cousin's dinner, word came out about the factory. Sonia, who never let me forget she'd married a civil engineer, asked, "So what's next, Nino?" Maury computer noises, the laughter that followed veered into mockery. The men at the table nodded gravely, the women rolled their eyes. Only my abuela tried to slip me another empanada as a kind of apology, her old hands trembling as she said, "You always had strange ears, Hijo. It's like your abuelos." The judgment in that cramped kitchen washed over me, hot and tight. I tried to defend myself out of a sense of duty, but I couldn't summon courage. It was easier to smile and turn silent, let their jokes bruise me in private. That was the rhythm for years. Madrid never slept, but I often did not sleep with it, tossing on thin mattresses as the city's breath rolled out, collecting its night noises into my dreamless wakefulness. I found myself drawn toward places where the world drowned in sound, movie sets, audio booths, open-air festivals, anywhere there was need for a microphone operator or damn near any job with a console and a battered set of headphones. I bought old equipment from pawn shops, mics, tape recorders, broken MIDI keyboards. I watched YouTube videos and online tutorials in English because the Spanish language ones were invariably about reggaeton or wedding DJ work, not about the artistry I craved. Madrid was alive but not always welcoming. As a freelancer, they let you into their world for a day, a week, long enough to put your fingers on the pulse, then moved on. Sometimes the directors let me try arranging mood pieces, sometimes just pushing lapses in dialogue or patching audio glitches. On nights I went home with nothing, I'd sit on my balcony, knees pulled to my chest, and watch the city lights swallow my ambition. Years slipped by, I found myself waking up to 30, then 32, apartment still rented, fridge bare more often than not, a phone full of hopeful recordings. My mother gave up calling to offer serious jobs. Cousins forgot to invite me for baptism parties, but I kept working, sleeping on train seats, patching a sound mix for a friend's indie film in an unheated studio, sipping bitter coffee at 3 a.m. to stay alive for just one more round. It was a strange life, but somewhere in the solitude I found courage. I immersed myself in the world of sound until I could build emotional resonance from scraps, tension from a dog barking in the distance, melancholy from a metro chord, hope from the right kind of echo. It was on a rain-soaked evening that everything pivoted. I'd sent a montage of city sounds, my own private symphony of Madrid's after-dark life, to a producer whose podcast I'd followed for years. He called me back, voice clipped and urgent, asking if I could meet the next day at a tiny, windowless studio in Chuka. When I arrived, damp and trembling, he listened to my work in silence, headphones pulled tight over his ears. When the last tram faded, he exhaled and said, "Who made this?" I told him it was all me, finding, recording, mixing. "You made me feel, I don't know, like I was hearing someone's whole life in those sounds," he said. He asked if I wanted to collaborate on a new show. It wasn't much, but it was a start. I immersed myself in the work, laboring overnight to score scenes of heartbreak, suspense, faint hope. The audience found the work haunting, drawn in by the fabric of ordinary sounds imbued with memory. It caught the attention of someone at an indie film house. Then a director called. Then suddenly, one Madrid Film Festival later, I was the anonymous name whispered under the rolling credits. I remember the clink of glasses at the after-party and the awkward joy of strangers pressing into my hands, asking me to tell them how I'd done it. The night air on my skin, the city's rush curling over my shoulders as if in benediction. Suddenly I had offers. The world spun faster, and for the first time I let it carry me. Over 2 years, I went from patching podcasts to soundscaping grown-up dramas, full-length films, a series for a streaming platform. Nobody at home noticed, or they pretended not to. My mother still sent me job advertisements cut from the paper. It was during a festival showing at the Teatro Coliseum in Gran Via when I got a call. My uncle Sonia's husband, the one who used to declare with pride, "Our family doesn't do show business," was on the line. He sounded tentative. "Son, you've done something, they're saying your name on the news." His words left me shaking, rage, vindication, disbelief tangled up inside. "Can you come to Sonia's birthday this year?" he asked. "Everyone will be there." I hung up trembling, eyes prickling. I wasn't sure I wanted to go. Part of me was still that kid with oil under his nails, clutching a redundant dream. But there was another voice inside, fierce and brave, that said, "Return, show them what you've built from nothing." I rented a suit, navy, a little too polished for the family's taste. The birthday was in an old stone restaurant near Puente de Vallecas, the same place as years ago. I arrived early, hands slick, nerves burning under my dress shirt. I stood by the entryway, breath short as neighbors and relatives poured in, coats damp from a still falling rain. My mother's face at the door was closed, worried, pinched. When she saw me, she blinked as if seeing a ghost. "Ernesto, you look different," she murmured before rushing inside. I found a table at the edge, sinking into a wooden chair. I could hear the clustered conversations. Sonia bristling with pride about her son's entrance into university, the old men still arguing over football, the sharp-edged jokes about Ernesto, the artist, drifting from one mouth to the next. When the whole clan had gathered, Sonia stood to give her birthday speech, cheeks flushed. She thanked everyone, motioned to her husband, her sons, her colleagues. She paused, eyes flicking to me, her smile thin. "And of course, my cousin Ernesto has come home. I always said he was a dreamer. Bueno, at least he's got a ticket to the movies." Laughter rustled the room. I braced myself. I hadn't brought a gift. I hadn't intended to, except the one in my phone, zipped and gleaming, the same soundscape that was playing that night on national TV, my name listed in the credits. Sound design by Ernesto Martin. At the end of the meal, after the cake was carried out and the voices began to mingle, I caught my uncle's eye. "There's a surprise on TV tonight, national channel, I think you all should see." A murmur ran through the room, at first dismissive, the kind that greeted my ideas since forever. But the mention of television drew interest, and after a flurry of movement, someone fumbled the restaurant's battered remote. The flat screen above the bar flickered to life. The film, a Madrid noir, rolled its opening credits. The names slipped by, big names and then mine. For a few moments nobody noticed. Madrid's cityscape unspooled on the screen, metro doors slicing through silence, streetlights fizzing in fog, heels clicking over cobblestones, a rain-soaked argument under flickering neon. Music faded, what remained was my sound, the heartbeat I'd built, the way I'd made broken glass weep, laughter echo in empty stations. On screen, the actors barely spoke, but the city roared and whispered through my design. In the restaurant, the clatter of dishes faded. The room froze around me, faces blurred, mouths open, attention seizing on what they couldn't deny. Every sustained silence on film was thick with meaning, each noise suddenly a memory. I could see my mother blinking hard, Sonia's husband checking the credits again. There was nowhere for them to hide. As the film reached its first quiet climax, a woman sobbing in a stairwell, the city shuddering outside, the screen paused and cut to black. My name stayed a fraction longer, sound designed by Ernesto Martin. Nobody laughed. The only sound was rain tapping the windows and the hum of the television. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Sonia, for once at a loss, looked directly at me. That was your work," she whispered. I nodded. My uncle grew quiet, his voice caught somewhere between embarrassment and awe. I never understood how sound can make something alive. I didn't know anyone in our family could do that. My mother just watched me, face unreadable. I saw her hand trembling on the tablecloth, and the urge to say something cruel or proud rose up my throat, but I swallowed it. There was no point in triumph, only the quiet warmth of knowing at last that I belonged not by their definition but by my own. The rest of the night flowed softer. The mocking edge had dulled, replaced instead by a kind of gentle curiosity. Sonia asked what it meant to work on a film, how much was art, how much luck. A cousin wanted to know how to record a guitar to sound like the rain coming in the window. Even the old men, bristling with pride, began to claim me as their own. When I stepped out onto the street after midnight, the air smelled of wet stone and drifting tobacco. I stood for a moment under the street lamp, breath cold, heart light. I could hear Madrid, the hum of traffic, the echo of a police siren, the hidden music in the gutters of my barrio. I was not ashamed anymore. The city had become my instrument. I had returned not as a prodigal, not even as a hero, but as myself, irreducible and undeniably real, finally secure in the music I'd built from every broken thing they'd ever mocked. And as I walked home, my footsteps joined the symphony I'd always heard, the one I never stopped believing I could make everyone else hear too.